How many times have you felt trapped in unfair situations, as if your dreams were so far away that they seemed like an illusion? If this feeling has ever passed through your life, the story of Joseph in the Bible will speak straight to your heart. Joseph wasn't just a young dreamer, he was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, thrown unjustly into prison, and yet, he never gave up. It seems impossible, right? But it is precisely in this scenario of pain and betrayal that divine providence transformed each fall into a step towards victory. In this video, you will discover that not all injustice is the end of the road. Sometimes, it is just the beginning of a great turnaround. Let's dive together into Joseph's incredible journey, from his colorful robe to the throne of Egypt, understanding how faith, patience and resilience can rewrite any destiny. Get ready, because this story will change the way you face your own challenges. From an early age, Jose already carried something special with him. Son of Jacob and Rachel, he grew up in a large family, but it was evident that there was a different shine in his way of being. When he won the famous tunic of many colors, the Kal coat of many colors, it wasn't just a nice gift, it was a clear symbol of the love and favoritism his father felt towards him. Just imagine, everyone wearing simple clothes and you getting a piece full of color and meaning. Naturally, this ignited envy among his brothers. A Joseph story. It begins by showing us a reality very close to ours, who has never faced jealousy or rejection from people close to them. The Bible describes this moment with a wealth of details that reveals how unresolved feelings can generate deep wounds. Jose, even without doing anything wrong, became the target of crooked looks and malicious plans. It's that old saying, sometimes the brilliance of others bothers those who haven't yet found their own path. But the interesting thing is that Jose didn't seem to let himself be contaminated by the toxic environment around him. While his brothers were consumed by envy, he continued to live with the lightness of someone who trusts in something greater. And here we can learn a powerful lesson: just because others treat us coldly doesn't mean we should freeze our hearts. Sometimes, maintaining our essence is the greatest act of faith and resilience we can have. It's curious to think that Jose's entire epic journey, which involves famine in Egypt, leadership, family redemption and salvation of Israel, began with a simple gesture of love from a father to his son. A gesture that generated unpredictable consequences, both good and challenging. In other words, in life, even what seems small can be the trigger for something gigantic. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe your small beginnings today are actually big promises in disguise? Jose was not just a talented young man, he carried dreams in his heart that seemed too big for his reality. In two stunning visions, he saw his brothers and even his parents bowing down to him. Can you imagine? At a time when respect was something serious, talking about it openly was like pouring gasoline on the fire of jealousy that already existed. But the important detail is that these prophetic dreams were not the fruit of vanity, they were signs of divine providence designing the future. If there's anything we learn from Joseph's story, is that not every dream is received with applause. Often, those who have a greater vision have to face misunderstanding even from those they love most. Maybe you also have dreams that seem exaggerated in the eyes of others, right? If so, remember, the dreams that God places in our hearts are seeds that, although they take time to grow, blossom at the right time, if we don't give up beforehand. Even in the face of rejection and ridicule, Jose did not give up on what he saw. And this teaches us a golden key: if God has shown you something, hold on tight, even when no one believes. Many great leaders started out this way, first being ridiculed, then being recognized. It was like that with Jose in Egypt, it was like that with David, with Moses, and it can be like that with you too, if you learn to keep your faith burning even in the dark. These dreams not only anticipated what was to come, but also prepared Jose emotionally for the battles he would face. A God-given dream is not just a spoiler for the future, it is also an invitation to grow from the inside before victory comes from the outside. So, here's the invitation: what dreams are you hiding for fear of what people will think? Maybe it's time to take them out of the drawer and trust that, just as happened with Jose, the vision will be fulfilled, at the right time. The deepest wound often comes from those we least expect. In Joseph's case, this truth became painfully clear. His own brothers, driven by envy fueled over the years, decided to get rid of him in a cruel way. First they thought about killing him, but ended up selling him as a slave for 20 silver coins, the price of a common slave at the time. The betrayal of brothers, it wasn't just a physical loss, it was an emotional rupture that could have destroyed any hope in the heart of a young dreamer. To cover up the crime, they tarnished the tunic of many colors of Joseph with animal blood and handed her over to her father, Jacob, making him believe that his beloved son had been killed by a wild beast. Here we see how lying, in addition to hurting those who are betrayed, also corrodes those who practice it. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The more they hid the truth, the more prisoners of guilt they became. And Jose, meanwhile, was dragged away from home, towards the unknown, without yet understanding the role of divine providence in all of this. Many of us have experienced injustices like this, moments when we were emotionally sold by those who were supposed to protect us. The difference is in how we choose to react. Joseph could have become bitter, he could have lost his faith right there, at the back of a slave caravan. But no. Somehow he decided to carry the faith and resilience like your new tunics. This is not something that happens by chance, it's a daily decision to trust that God is in charge even when everything seems out of control. This passage leaves us with an important provocation: are the betrayals we suffer not, in fact, pushing us to the places where our dreams will come true? Just like the sale of Jose to the Egypt, it seemed like the end, but in reality it was just the beginning. Maybe some losses in your life are being used to open doors that you can't even imagine yet. Hard to accept at the time, I know. But those who understand this soon learn to tread more lightly, as those who know that every deviation is part of God's larger map. Arriving at Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an important official in the court of Pharaoh. Even carrying the marks of betrayal of brothers and from slavery, Jose did not let bitterness dominate him. On the contrary, he worked with so much excellence, integrity, and dedication that he soon stood out. The Bible makes it clear that God was with him, and where the divine providence acts, even strange lands become fertile soil to flourish. And so it was that Joseph, even as a slave, took over the administration of Potiphar's entire house. Imagine the scene: a young foreigner, newly arrived, gaining the trust of one of the most powerful men in the country. It's no small feat. This teaches us that true leadership does not depend on the position we occupy, but on the posture we adopt. Jose saw his days as an opportunity, not as a punishment. If you are going through a difficult phase at work, or feel stuck in a routine you didn't want, remember Jose: it is in the field of obedience and excellence that great promotions are born. It's interesting to see how Jose didn't need to do personal marketing to grow. His own behavior was his calling card. In such a noisy world today, where many people pretend to be something they are not, authenticity and integrity remain rare and valuable currencies. Joseph didn't compromise his values to please Potiphar, he was just true to what he believed. And the natural consequence was his recognition. Sometimes the best strategy for winning is to simply be good at what God has put in your hands right now. Joseph's success in Potiphar's house also shows us that blessing is not the absence of problems, but the constant presence of God even in unlikely situations. After all, he would soon face one of the biggest tests of his life, showing that each stage of growth also prepares us for greater challenges. And you? Are you using your small successes to train your character for what lies ahead? Perhaps the phase you are experiencing today is exactly the training that God designed for your next promotion. Even at the height of his success in Potiphar's house, Joseph faced a trap that many know well, being the victim of a lie. Potiphar's wife, frustrated at having her advances rejected, decided to falsely accuse him. Just imagine, an upright young man, who had already been through betrayal of brothers, now being played on unfair imprisonment for a crime he never committed. It's not difficult to identify, right? Sometimes it seems like the more we try to do the right thing, the more problems get in the way. Joseph's imprisonment was more than a physical cell, it was also an emotional and spiritual trial. He could have rebelled, cursed his life and abandoned his faith. But again, he chose to trust. Even between chains and bars, the faith and resilience remained their invisible weapons. You know that saying, those who are great grow even in adversity? Well, Jose is living proof of that. And we can be too, if we decide not to let injustices define who we are. It is interesting to note that, even in prison, Jose once again stood out. The jailer trusted him with the management of the other prisoners. It seems like a joke, but it's real. Wherever Jose placed his hands, the divine providence made it bloom. This teaches us that when God has a plan for your life, not even bars can stop it. It may take time, it may hurt, but the purpose remains firm. So if today you feel like you're stuck in some area of life, emotional, financial, spiritual, maybe God is just rearranging the pieces into something bigger. Jose shows us that patience is not passivity. On the contrary, it is an active posture of trust. While awaiting his release, he continued to serve, grow, learn. Maybe your jail time is also preparation time. And look, whoever learns to be faithful in prison will be prepared to govern palaces. Who knows, maybe this difficult season isn't exactly the polish you needed for what's to come. Even amidst the bars and the feeling of injustice, Joseph kept something alive within him, the gift that God had given him. In prison, he met two important officials of the Pharaoh, the chief butler and the chief baker, who were troubled by mysterious dreams. And here comes a powerful point of Joseph's story: he did not keep his talent to himself, nor did he let bitterness stifle his purpose. Even in a place of pain, he chose to serve. He chose to interpret dreams that would change lives. Jose's sensitivity to noticing the anguish of others reveals something impressive: those who are called to lead first learn to care. He didn't just hear the dreams, he got involved, welcomed and delivered a response from God. And all this, in a scenario where he would have every excuse to be selfish or indifferent. How many times do we let our pain make us insensitive to the pain of others? Jose teaches that serving in the midst of suffering is often the shortest path to our own redemption. Jose's interpretations were accurate: the cupbearer would be restored to his position, and the baker would be executed. Exactly as he revealed. This experience reinforces that, even away from the spotlight, fidelity in little prepares for much. So, if today your gifts and talents seem forgotten in some prison of life, remember, it is there, in anonymity, that God often polishes those who he will place in prominent positions later. Joseph asked the cupbearer, when he was restored, to remember him before Pharaoh. But the butler forgot. Another injustice? Perhaps. But looking today, it is clear, God did not want Joseph to leave prison before the right time. Sometimes the delays that frustrate us so much are divine protections in disguise. Who knows, maybe the silence you face today is actually God working behind the scenes for something much bigger than you could ever imagine. After 2 long years forgotten in prison, the moment prepared by God finally arrived. The Pharaoh had disturbing dreams that no one in the world Egypt managed to interpret. It was there that the cupbearer, now restored, remembered Joseph, that young Hebrew with the gift of deciphering mysteries. Called in a hurry, Joseph presented himself before the Pharaoh, but with an impressive humility, he made it clear that the ability to interpret dreams came from God, and not from himself. A true example of leadership based on service and faith. Pharaoh's dreams predicted 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of severe famine in Egypt. With wisdom from above, Jose not only interpreted dreams, but presented a brilliant strategy to save the country from catastrophe. This shows something precious: those who prepare themselves even in adversity, when the opportunity arrives, are ready to give answers and not excuses. Perhaps this is why the Bible emphasizes so much the patience and others' faith and resilience. They are what sustain us until the turning point. Impressed by Joseph's vision and administrative ability, Pharaoh elevated him to second in command of all of Egypt. From slave to governor in a single day. Sounds like a movie story, right? But that's the beauty of divine providence. She transforms destinies in the blink of an eye. Joseph received Pharaoh's ring, new clothes, and a position of honor. All this after years of pain, injustice, and silence. If today you feel stuck in a difficult season, remember, God's time may seem slow, but when it arrives, everything happens quickly. This moment of Joseph's story invites us to reflect: are we prepared for the doors we ask God to open? Joseph was trained during each phase, in Potiphar's house, in prison, in silence, to be able to withstand the greatness of the mission that awaited him. His growth was not just external, but internal. Those who are faithful behind the scenes are promoted on stage. And you, have you been building your character to withstand the blessing that is coming? Years passed, and as Joseph had predicted, famine spread throughout the land. Egypt and neighboring lands. It was then that the unexpected happened. His brothers, those who had sold him into slavery, came to Egypt in search of food. And without knowing it, they knelt before Joseph, fulfilling the ancient prophetic dreams that they had previously ridiculed. What a scene, huh? Life taking such big turns that only the divine providence could have orchestrated. Joseph, now vested with authority, had the power to take revenge. He could have made his brothers suffer as he did. But he chose something harder and grander, the path of forgiveness. Sometimes God puts us in positions of power not to punish those who have hurt us, but to show that true leadership is made of mercy. It makes us wonder, are we ready to act with grace when our prayers are answered? Even without revealing his identity right away, Jose treated his brothers with respect and wisdom. He wanted to see if they had changed, if their repentance was true. Why reconciliation? Truth demands more than pretty words, it requires character transformation. Joseph's care in testing his brothers teaches us something valuable. Forgiving is not being naive, it's having a clean heart, but open eyes. A combination that only those who have matured in pain know how to balance. At this reunion, the Joseph story shows us that the pain of the past, when surrendered to God, can become a bridge to restoration. If today you carry old wounds, maybe it's time to let God rewrite that story too. Sometimes, the reconciliation that seems impossible is precisely the miracle that is one step away from happening, and it can be much greater than you imagine. Before revealing himself, Jose decided to test his brothers. And who can judge him? After everything they'd been through, it was natural to want to see if they had really changed. He created strategic situations. First, he returned their money without them noticing, then he placed his silver cup in Benjamin's luggage to accuse them of stealing. It wasn't revenge, it was discernment. Jose wanted to see if selfishness still governed their actions, or if they had now learned about love and responsibility. The brothers' attitude showed something surprising. They were willing to sacrifice themselves to protect Benjamin, Jacob's new favorite son. Judah, the one who years before had suggested selling Joseph, now offered to be a slave in his younger brother's place. What a turnaround! This reveals that, yes, people change. The human heart can be transformed when it is confronted with the truth and allows itself to be broken. The Joseph story here's a powerful reminder: not all betrayal lasts forever. These tests also show that forgiveness does not mean ignoring the past. Jose needed to trust, but in a healthy, conscious way. Maybe you are also in a time to reconnect with people who hurt you. Wisdom is fundamental: forgive from the heart, but allow trust to be rebuilt through attitudes, and not just empty promises. Jose teaches us that love and prudence can go hand in hand without guilt or weight. Upon seeing that his brothers were truly repentant, Joseph wept. Not of pain, but of relief and emotion. That moment marked the end of a cycle of suffering and the beginning of a family redemption. And look how beautiful, God not only restored their relationship, but also used all of this to preserve the lineage of Israel. Sometimes, what seems to be just a personal drama is part of a much bigger plan than we can see today. When he finally could no longer hide his feelings, Joseph revealed himself to his brothers. It was one of the most emotional moments of the entire Joseph story. He cried so loudly that even Pharaoh's house heard it. Imagine the scene. He who had been sold, betrayed and forgotten, now stood before his tormentors, not to humiliate them, but to embrace them. A living portrait of forgiveness, patience and the deep divine providence that turns tears into testimonies. Joseph didn't just forgive them, he comforted them. He said that everything that happened served to save lives, including their own. This vision of purpose is something that only those who have matured in pain can have. How many times do we get stuck in our sorrows because we can't see the bigger picture? Hosea teaches us that when we place our pains in God's hands, they become tools to build something much bigger than just our own story. Then Joseph asked his brothers to go and get Jacob, his father, to live in Egypt. It was time to restore the family ties that had been broken so many years before. Joseph's reunion with Jacob is one of the most touching scenes in the Bible, an embrace that seemed to heal all the years of loss, longing, and pain. Maybe today you also need to take the first step to restore some relationship that time or distance tried to erase. Sometimes a gesture of love is enough to change everything. This stage of Joseph's journey shows us that family redemption is possible, even after so many mistakes, separations, and disagreements. Nothing is irreversible for those who trust in God's grace. What's more, each story of reconciliation is a reminder that God's hand is always writing new beginnings for those who are willing to forgive, embrace, and move forward, without forgetting the past, but without being a prisoner of it. After all the excitement of reunion and redemption, Hosea arranged for his family to move to Egypt. With the permission of Pharaoh, they were installed in Goshen, one of the best lands available. It wasn't just any corner, right? It was a fertile area, ideal for their herds to thrive. He who had been sold into slavery was now preparing a future of dignity and abundance for his family. The divine providence once again showed that God never forgets his promises. The Pharaoh recognized something so extraordinary in Joseph that he treated his family with honor, not like despised foreigners. This teaches us something powerful: when we walk under God's favor, doors open even in territories that are not ours by human right. It's that old biblical saying in practice: God places his own in places of honor. So if you feel like you're in a strange land, trust, where there is faith and integrity, there is also room to grow. The Israelites, under Joseph's care, prospered greatly. It was in this context that the nation of Israel began to multiply in Egypt, setting the stage for great events that would come later, such as the call of Moses and the Exodus. In other words, a decision of faith made today can impact entire generations. Think about it. Your choices of perseverance, forgiveness, and integrity may be paving the way for others to also know the goodness of God. This new chapter of Joseph's story reinforces that leadership is not just about occupying high positions. Leadership is about creating environments where others can also flourish. Joseph did not seek personal glory, he sought to ensure that his family lived with dignity and faith. A real leader doesn't just think about himself, he thinks about the generations to come. And you, have you ever thought about how your story can become a platform of blessings for those around you? When he reached the end of his life, Hosea could have settled into the comfort and honors he achieved in Egypt. But his gaze was beyond. He remembered the promises made by God to his ancestors. Before he died, Joseph made a point of asking for his bones to be taken back to the promised land. A simple request, but full of meaning. He knew that Egypt was just a station, not the final destination. And it is this type of vision that transforms an ordinary life into a true legacy of faith. Jose teaches us that a success story is only complete when it connects to something bigger than ourselves. Having reached the top of Egyptian society did not make him forget his roots or his purpose. This is powerful. Keeping your heart aligned with the promise, even when circumstances are favorable, is a sign of mature faith. In times of ease, it's easy to get distracted and forget where we came from, but Jose kept the flame burning until the end. Your request also sends a strong message to us. What are you leaving for the next generations? Just material goods, or also eternal values? Joseph left more than lands and riches. He left an example of faith and resilience, of patience, trust in divine providence, forgiveness, servant leadership. A type of inheritance that neither hunger, nor slavery, nor centuries could erase. A Joseph story ends, but its impact continues to echo today. He wasn't just a biblical character, he was a living reminder that when we walk by faith, God transforms slavery into government, pain into purpose, loss into redemption. And now the question remains, what will be the legacy you will leave? The decision is yours, and it starts now. And now I ask you, what part of Joseph's story spoke to you the most? Are you also going through a time of silence, injustice, or waiting, without understanding exactly what God is doing? Remember, the same divine providence who guided Jose in every detail is still active today, shaping you, preparing you and leading you to something much greater than you can imagine now. How about reflecting a little? Have you cultivated patience while your dreams seem dormant? Has maintained the faith and resilience in the face of adversity? Or is it time to rescue old dreams that you shelved out of fear or disappointment? Joseph's journey shows us that even when it seems like everything is falling apart, God is actually building a perfect plan behind the scenes. So, if this story touched your heart, don't let it stop here. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. And of course, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications and continue with us on this journey of discovery and spiritual strengthening. We still have many incredible stories to unearth together, and I'm sure you won't want to miss out.